Up for today's presentation on democratic transition in Pakistan and the election of 2013. Our presenter is Syed Jawad Ali Shah, and he comes to the Maxwell School. He's right now an EMPA candidate. He's an interest in policy analysis, public-private partnerships, international trade and finance, public management reform, and strategic management. Most recently, Jawad served as the Deputy Commissioner in the Regional Tax Office in Lahore. He holds a bachelor degrees from the University of Punjab and the University of Engineering and Technology in Lahore. And welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The purpose of this presentation and this topic is twofold. One is to introduce you about how the politics in Pakistan work. And the second is to give you, you can say, a pre-election analysis or a pre-election introduction. Because as the schedule suggests, the elections are going to be held in Pakistan on 11th of May 2013 in the federal legislature as well as in the provincial legislatures. So the basic theme of this presentation will be to first let you know what happened during the ouster of Pervez Musharraf, which was like the last military regime. And once he was ousted, how the democracy worked or how it did not work, and what is the importance of these elections for the democracy to thrive in Pakistan. But with all that in mind, I would first like to give you a few basic facts about Pakistan so that those of you who may not be that well aware about the country can develop a basic understanding first. Pakistan is the sixth largest country in the world with a population of 180 million. It is the second largest Muslim country in the world after Indonesia. It has an army which is considered seventh largest in terms of active troops. It is a nuclear power and the only Muslim country to be a nuclear power. It shares its borders with 4 countries, and all of them are very important both internationally and obviously regionally. In our east our border is with India. India, as you know, is the second largest country in the world. Our northern border is with China, and China is the largest country in the world. Then our western border is shared with Afghanistan and Iran. So Afghanistan and Iran are again both very important countries in the world. So according to this geographic location of Pakistan, it is thus very common for Pakistan to be always in the news, sometimes for right reason and sometimes for the wrong reasons. So let me first give you a brief that what is the division of Pakistan as such. Pakistan has 4 provinces. The most populous province is the province of Punjab, which is about 60% of the population. The second largest province is the province of Sindh, which is about 24-25% of the population. 10% of the population lives in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which used to be called Northwestern Frontier Province. And about 6% of the population lives in Balochistan. And even in Punjab, there are sort of 2 distinct divisions. The northern and central Punjab, which is approximately 35 to 40% of the population of Pakistan, is concentrated in a very small region which starts from Islamabad in the north and ends at Lahore. If I could show you Lahore, it would be, it doesn't work. So it would be just around here. So it's a small, you can say, a belt of Pakistan, which is so densely populated that it's about 35 to 40% of the Pakistan. And it is for this reason that all the military bureaucracy, the civilian bureaucracy, and the political elite are mostly from this region of Pakistan. And whatever, as they say, Lahore or Rawalpindi decides is what Pakistan decides. And this is sort of an argument which is given by the provinces which are small for their anger against which they call the hegemony of Punjab. Now let me give you a brief about what happens during the overthrow of Pervez Musharraf regime. Pervez Musharraf's overthrow was not only political. Actually, he was sitting on a very comfortable footing until he showed one picture on the television which angered the country so much that all the country rose against him. It was a picture of Chief Justice being called into the office of President and asked to resign with the three intelligence chiefs sitting by his side in the uniform, the chief of ISI, the chief of military intelligence, and the chief of intelligence bureau. At that time, political parties did not have much of, you can say, respect within the population. They had the connection, but they were sort of discredited because of their previous performance. So now the Chief Justice provided sort of a watershed behind which everybody started gathering. And as Chief Justice vowed to fight his case and he refused to resign, so the first phase of judiciary movement started in March of 2007, which culminated in July of 2007 with the restoration of the Chief Justice for the first time. In that process, political parties, lawyers, media, and civil society, they all came together, and the demand was one that the Constitution should be supreme and should not be the will of a person to decide whatever he thinks. At that time, the Constitution was restored, and it was thought that the constitutional process for dismissal of Chief Justice or anybody should be followed instead of President just ordering anybody to go or come. In November 2007, Pervez Musharraf with the threat of possible disqualification as president, because he was also an army chief, and if you are serving in a government position, you cannot fight an election until after 2 years you have resigned. So under that threat, he just dismissed the judiciary unconstitutionally, issued a self-proclaimed order as army chief, and locked the judges, blocked media outlets, and this started the second phase of judiciary movement. And in that phase, the elections were also had. So at that time, lawyers, media, and civil society, they remained united behind the judiciary, but at that time, the political parties started dividing. Some said that we will go to the election, some said that, okay, we should not go too far behind the judiciary to compromise democracy, and all sorts of arguments started. And in 2008, after general elections, they again combined the political parties to threaten Musharraf with an impeachment, and he had to eventually resign because the impeachment was on the cards, so he found it fit to resign. But at that time, judiciary was not restored. The new government, which was the government of Pakistan People's Party, it cited some constitutional problems which were considered very vague by the country. But it said that since the Chief Justice could not be removed, and now there is a Chief Justice sitting, so we cannot place that Chief Justice which was removed by Musharraf again here. So it was kind of a loose argument, but they stick to that. So as they stick to that, so there was a division amongst the lawyers and the judiciary and the political parties as what to be followed. But then again, everybody got behind the Chief Justice and the lawyers, and they said that since those acts of Musharraf was unconstitutional, so they were void ab initio, so there is no need for any constitutional amendment on constitutional procedure to restore the Chief Justice, and he was restored as such in March 2009. After March 2009, or you can say it up till 2013, we can divide like the developments I have divided in three categories. First, let's discuss what were the good developments. In 2009 to 2013, all the political parties, almost by consensus, instituted broad constitutional reforms which restored the parliamentary system. And they also tried to fill out the lacunas which had been in the past used by the dictators and sometimes by other forces to work against the democracy, such as what should be the responsibilities of election commission, the caretaker governments, how the elections will be held, and the procedures which were vague were outlined more streamlinedly. The political parties did their points scoring, but they did not create a major destabilization for the other parties. For example, vowing to overthrow the government. So they all agreed that whoever has the political majority should continue to rule. The other good development was that from 2008 to 2012, Taliban and most of the extremists, they started losing ground because this time some popularly elected people were in charge, and as they spoke against the extremists, so it carried much more weight than a single person like Musharraf speaking against the extremists. Another good development was the rise of, you can say, the rise of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which translates as Pakistan Movement for Justice, a political party which was there for many years, but with increased emphasis on justice and its populist agenda, it started gaining more crowds and it became more popular. But it is not in the assembly as such because it didn't fight the last election. And then there was not enough support for the military to directly intervene in any matter because most of the people, they held last military regime responsible for the views. And another good thing was that the political governments did not institute any political repression. In the past, they used to marginalize their opponents by casting them into jails or instituting cases against them. But this time it was the other way around. It was the ruling parties against which the cases were opened. And that we will discuss later. The bad things were that military and civilian agencies, they became too embroiled in war and terror and also a sort of insurgency in Balochistan and other things, and there was no cohesion and everybody was having its, you can say, his own agendas, and there was no lack of a national agenda. Then the economy remained in turmoil. There was no significant economic progress. There was severe energy crisis, which resulted in blackouts and hampering of industrial growth. And then there was an increasing dissatisfaction with political parties that they are just doing their own, they are just enriching themselves at the cost of the people. Then there were some ugly things happening also. For example, as I discussed, the judiciary, once it realized that this is the government which did not want to restore us, so they started responding in real time by opening whatever corruption scandal or whatever incident would happen, like on 6-7 day basis, there will be a new investigation against the government by the judiciary. So the ruling party, and that was centered around ruling party, that is Pakistan People's Party, which was the majority party. The allegations were largely of the corruption and sometimes of mismanagement, sometimes of loose law enforcement, and all the, you can say, main heads of agencies and police, etc., they will be called to in judicial courts and they will be then scouted by the judiciary. Now the government, seeing that it could not do much against what army wishes or what judiciary wishes, so it just started what is considered as a real politic, or you can say a series of steps which were basically aimed at placating army, judiciary, sometimes what international players wanted, and then it was a coalition government, so what the allies wanted. But it managed to survive a series of crises, which is not easy because the type of crisis that this government handled was much more severe than any, you can say, previous democratic government faced. But they went through it just by, you can say, backstepping from their position on each and every occasion. At this time, most of the surveys, or you can say around 2009 to 2012, they put the government's popularity around 10%, which is too low. But at the same time, many analysts predict that this government will get re-elected. So how does it make, it doesn't make any sense in the sense that if you are sitting at 10%, how can you win the election when the elections are also promised to be free and fair? The actual trick is that how the politics in Pakistan work, because it's a parliamentary system, so you have to win a parliamentary constituency. So that political math favors the Pakistan People's Party still too much that it is still considered a very strong candidate for re-election, which I will explain a little later. Then a very ugly step was in the beginning of 2013 that most of the political parties, they started announcing talks with Taliban, and you can say that we should talk to these people and stuff like that. And the basic aim of was that as they go into the election, so the extremists should not bomb their rallies or should not threaten them, so that they can have a peaceful political campaign. So I think that these was something which should not have happened, and these were like the ugly episode in this process. Now let's see who are the major political players and what are their strengths and how do they operate. The first and foremost is the President of Pakistan, Asif Ali Zardari. He is the husband of slain leader of Pakistan People's Party, Benazir Bhutto. The political leaning of Pakistan People's Party is center-left. It used to be a very ultra-left party, but over time, in the last 20-25 years, it has moved to more towards center. Now, this is a sort of party which is not backed by any player. Like, it is not backed by international players, it is not backed by military, not backed by extremists, not backed by rival politicians, but somehow the president has made himself acceptable to international players. Acceptable. There's a difference between being backed by someone and being acceptable. So he has presented himself as being acceptable to international players, is acceptable to military, is acceptable to rival politicians because he has not gone for the political repression. But he remains unacceptable to judiciary. Most of the urban Pakistan, which literally hates, not hates People's Party, but they hate their leader. And there's a long history of that. And also by militants, because the leftist parties are the only parties which have, like for 40 years, remained against militantism and extremism, whether it was the war against Russia in Afghanistan or whether it is now the fight of Taliban against US. So they are the ones who have been opposed to extremists. So that's why they are the kind of parties which the extremists would never accept. It is a party, or you can say its leadership is deeply unpopular in masses. President is himself very unpopular, but he remains in control of the party, and he has the political math working somehow to his advantage. He hasn't compromised with militants on his, you can say, on his own calling. What he has done over the years is that sometimes if there is a pressure by army to somehow like talk with the militants, so he would let the army people talk with the militants. So if there is some political party who wants to talk with the militant, he will allow them to talk with the militants. Or sometimes if international community feels that they should go ahead with Taliban, so he would say, go ahead. But he has kept his party out of the loop that we are not going to talk to them. So plus just keeping in view their tradition of not being a leftist party which is always against these rightist tendency. The second big player and considered by many as Prime Minister in waiting is Mian Nawaz Sharif. He has Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, which is a center-right party. He is strongly backed by judiciary. Many analysts think, but obviously judiciary does not back anybody by name, but it is considered that he is backed by judiciary. He is acceptable to many international players and even the militants because of his more, you can say his more appeasing gestures towards Taliban. Especially there was like one statement by his brother, who is Chief Minister of Punjab, which was taken in very bad context, in which he literally requested Taliban not to bomb places in Punjab because we are the ones supporting you. So that is still touted by his rivals as a statement supporting the Taliban. And he remains unacceptable to military and some of the politicians. To military because he tinkered with military affairs. He had been Prime Minister of Pakistan twice. So whenever he was Prime Minister, he was at odds with the military. So the military establishment thinks that if he again comes to power, then he will again start from where he left. And this time he will be more revengeful because he considers himself as a born-again Democrat. And And there are some politicians against whom he has very strong views, so they are not willing to form a coalition with him because they consider him as too, you can say, is not very accommodating as a coalition partner. He is quite popular, like his popularity rating are above 40%, around 50%, but does he have enough support to win a majority? It seems very unlikely. Now the third person who has suddenly rose to eminence is Imran Khan. Imran Khan is a former cricket captain of Pakistan, and he won the World Cup for Pakistan. He has been in politics for like 15, 16 years, but he has never been able to gather weight. But with growing, you can say, growing disenchantment with the current political parties, so people started to responding to his agenda. Now, what is his political leaning? He says that he is neither a politician of right, nor of left, nor is center. He takes a position on an issue which he thinks is right. So whether it is a position of a rightist party or a centrist party or leftist party, so he does not define himself as a party, which is on right, center, or left. So that's why I quoted his position as right, center, left. He's everywhere. Is backed by the judiciary and considered somebody thrown by the military to speak their voice. And he has been called as Taliban Khan for his strong support for not instituting an operation against Taliban. He has now backed down from that position, which means he has moved from right to center to left, and that's why he is constantly moving his positions. Is marginally acceptable to some international players, and he is acceptable to rival politicians. He is very popular, but he does not have an ideological base. By ideological base, I mean that in Pakistan, how the politics work, that there is about 35% of the people who will always vote for the leftist parties, and there are about 35% of the people who will always vote for a rightist party. And there are rest 30% who vote depending upon how the election is moving, who they like, and they will vote for the leftists, they will vote for the rightists, they will vote for anybody who they like. So because of his catering to a particular ideological base, he has not been able to gain that critical momentum which can lead him to a decisive victory. Now, why these elections are very important? This is the first time in 66 years history of Pakistan that a democratic government has completed its tenure. Previously, you can say there were like 15 governments, but they could not complete their tenure. So either they will be dismissed after 2 years, 1.5 years, 6 months, 1 year. And this is the first government which completed 5 years. It is the first opportunity in Pakistan for a voluntary transfer of power. Previously, there is no concept of voluntary transfer of power. If you are a military regime, there will be boycott, a popular movement, and you will be thrown out. If you are a civilian regime, you will be thrown out in some manner by president or somebody. So there is no concept of peaceful transfer of power. This will be the first time that there will be a voluntary and peaceful transfer of power in Pakistan. And why it is possible? Because both the opposition and the government, they agreed on a constitutional amendment which ensured an independent election commission and the caretaker governments. As the thing stands, now the governments which were in power, they have resigned, and the caretaker setups are coming in place for 60 to 90 days to ensure that the elections are free and fair. And most important of all is that there has been an argument against civilian supremacy, that they fight with each other and they cannot sort the things out. So this is an opportunity for the civilians to sort their things out without an external referee. The external referee sometimes used to be some international players or military or sometimes even judiciary. So this is the first time it is considered that they are sorting the things out between themselves. So now what are the prospects or the good things that can ensure an election? There is generally a bipartisan spirit by all the political parties. They agree that the elections should be held and the constitution should remain supreme and democracy should thrive, and this ideology is strongly backed by media, which would simply thrash anybody who speaks against them or who speaks against this principle. So they will literally thrash him in a week or two. Even if he has worked for 10 years and build a base, they will thrash his base out in a week by condemning him. And as the things stand, federal government and 3 provincial governments have already been dissolved. Caretaker setups are being set up in 3 provinces, and there is still negotiation going on for the federal government and the caretaker setup in Punjab. Not all major political parties, they have, at least as they say, that they are supporting immediate elections. And another good prospect is that the present leadership of judiciary, the Chief Justice is going to retire in December 2013, and the Army Chief retires in November 2013, and the President's tenure is over in September 2013. So there is like chance for all the old heads to go and the new leadership to emerge in all sectors. So that is considered by many as a good prospect. Based on some principle, we can move forward. But there are some real dangers which around the elections. One is a concerted effort by the establishment to delay the election. Now, establishment is a particular Pakistani term which is used to characterize elements in military, elements in business, and elements in landed aristocracy, which sort of have taken upon themselves as like self-appointed guardians of what Pakistan should do and what Pakistan should not do. So they, all the time, they get together and they try to move the country in whatever direction they want it to move instead of what the people of the country want to do with their country. And they are actively trying to impose a Bangladesh model. Now, a Bangladesh model was something which was tried in Bangladesh, in which there was a 2-year caretaker setup, which sort of tried to clean the corrupt element, which actually means shunting out all the politicians who have any base, and then after that hold an election. And by that 2 years, again, they can regain the power that they have lost in the last 5 years. The other major aspect is that as the actual elections are approaching, there is an increase in militancy and the attacks by extremist organizations like Lashkar-e-Jhangvi on Shia minority, and then the attacks against the military, the attacks in general have increased a lot. And the Taliban have openly threatened to block the election by whatever means. And when they say whatever means, it's very clear that they are going to bomb the rallies. Then there are certain sections of media, politicians, business interests, and landlords, as I said earlier, which are considered very sympathetic to delaying of election. They say that these politicians are corrupt, so first we should get rid of these corrupt people before they stand a chance to get re-elected or participate in elections. Then there is a confusion amongst some section of masses who think that democratic government was corrupt or it was ineffective in some sense, and it doesn't really matter who rules us, because whether it is a democratic government or a military government. And then there is a strong likelihood of a minority government and fractured coalition, which also does not go well with the people in large. So now what can be the possible scenarios which would emerge? Now, the first scenario, which is very unlikely, is that one party wins the majority. As the thing stands, we never know what happens in the election, but as the thing stands, it seems very unlikely that one party will win the majority. But if it happens, it will be a very stable government and it will be able to take tough economic decisions, and it presents the best scenario for democracy to flourish. But the highly likely scenario, which is also the most dangerous scenario, is a fractured coalition in which even the party with the most seats gets about 25% seats, and there are a lot of parties with 10, 15, 12%, and there's a hodgepodge of coalition government. What it would mean will be a political instability, no tough economic decisions, and ability for the non-democratic forces to thrive by supporting one element and then not supporting another element. Then there is a third scenario, which is not much talked in the election, but it could be likely. It is a stable coalition. The government will be a stable coalition. I mean, let's say the biggest two parties, they decide to form a coalition. So that will be a stable coalition, like one party has 30% seat, other has 25%, so they form a coalition. So it will be a stable government. But whether it will restore economic stability, it remains a question. And in the circumstances, it will not be a bad scenario for the democracy. Now, what I believe what happened, or what are my conclusions, I think that in long term, this time there are far more prospects for democracy to survive than not to survive. And there are many factors of that. One is the consensus on constitutional supremacy, independence of judiciary, then the independent media there, and in general, more political maturity by the political players. And there will be, if the elections go through and whatever government comes in power, there will be a reduction in extremism and violence, because already there is not much support, and the extremists will start losing their, you can say, spirit, seeing that there is another transition, another government, so there is no chance, the same things are going on, so suddenly they start losing ground between the masses whom they promise a very quick end to the things. And there will be economic stability and continuity, and this will result in gradual civilian supremacy in the foreign affairs and the affairs related to the security of Pakistan. So with that, I will thank you and ask you to ask questions, whatever question you have. Yeah.
Okay, I'm from India, actually. I just wonder, you have representative democracy in US, that too parliamentary democracy, which is more representative than anything. How come the institutions like judiciary and other players become more than the democracy, more than the civil power? I mean, they should, no doubt, they are democratic institutions.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they should be above the elected government. And that's one. I fail to understand. I think that's because that reason the democracy never took roots in Pakistan in the last 66 years. The other thing you are repeatedly mentioning about the politicians, he is acceptable to international media, he is not acceptable, he is less acceptable kind of thing.
Yeah.
You claim to be a sixth largest country in the world.
Right.
Why do you need international acceptance for a leader to be elected or to become a national level leader or something like that? You should stand up your own. I mean, somebody will support
yeah.
you or not.
I will talk about. First thing, that why these are strong, actually what happened is because when the first military takeover happened, so there was a general alliance between judiciary and military. Actually what will happen, that when military will come into power, they will simply dismiss all the judges whom they would see that they are not compliant to us. So they will dismiss those judges, put in their own judges in the higher judiciary, and then they will seek a sort of, you can say, legitimacy of their rules. So there will be like a decision by the Supreme Court appointed by the military to let the military rule for, say, 3 years or 5 years. So that's the kind of thing in which you can't do nothing. I mean, there is a constitution which cannot be suspended, which cannot be barred, but if somebody comes into power and say that I'm in power, and there are my judges who say that you can rule, so it is very difficult to throw that person with with simply by words, because whoever comes into power with military strength is not going to do. So this has developed a kind of a very powerful judiciary and military who own a lot of, especially in some parts of military establishments, they are now so much rich. Their children control a lot of businesses. For example, the head of Coca-Cola, the head of Pepsi in Pakistan is the son of a former journal of ISI. And similarly, all like the major establishments, so they are in there, they control the major businesses, they control the major real estate business, and they use their power sometimes too blatantly. For example, if let's say I'm a civilian bureaucrat who wants to get promoted to grade 21, which you can say is additional secretary in the federal government. So I have to seek a clearance from the defense ministry. And if I have said something which went against military instructions, so they would simply refuse me that you cannot be promoted. So that's end of my career. So
No, it's okay. Thing is, if a popular government is dismissed by military,
yeah,
the people will not revolt or they will not come to the streets.
they did come to the street. For example, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was like most popular. They came to the street. They were repressed. They were like repressed by the military by openly, by you can say, what you call in lashes, open lashes in the open by the military personnel, and they were just whisked away, and nobody would see them, and then they executed with the support of judiciary, the prime minister also. So this is kind of a message that you get that if you try to be more genius or more popular, then this is the way you end up. So it's like, and coming to your second question, that why don't we decide? It's actually not people. If you are acceptable to international players, then you are likely to be very unpopular in Pakistan. So it's not that the people vote because of this. It's actually that if you are acceptable to certain international countries, or let's say you are unacceptable to certain international countries, so then they will not throw their weight behind you. Like they will not use their influence to support you. So it's a trade-off. Like if you want to be popular, that's like Imran Khan did. You speak against everybody. You speak against India. You speak against America. You speak against the politician. You speak against everybody. So you will be popular. But yeah, you are popular, but it's very difficult for you to now get elected because you have said those things which people are not likely to forget. Yes.
Jawad, as far as I see, the worst scenario is most likely for the next coming election. So how can we be optimistic for the democratic transition?
Yeah, actually, this is why there is so much debate about the election or something. But if you ask any political parties, so they would say outright that we are going to win the election. So it's not that they say that we are not going to win the election. But actually, let me get back to the second slide. Actually, what happens in Pakistan is that certain political parties have their very solid base, which have their historical voting base. For example, in Sindh, why Pakistan People's Party is still in contention, that except urban centers in Sindh, it controls almost all the Sindh. And whatever happens, it is going to win all the seats in Sindh except in Karachi and Hyderabad. And all the seats in Karachi and Hyderabad are likely to go to Muttahida Qawmi Movement, which is a regional Urdu-speaking party. In Punjab, the northern Punjab is more likely to vote for northern and central Punjab for Nawaz Sharif or Imran Khan. But coming to the south, again, the People's Party, because it's a leftist party, it has a base in poor segments, and since the lower half of Punjab is poor, so it still has a strong base down there. So it may not have votes here. And similarly in KPK, it has a presence, so it's kind of a party which will get vote everywhere, and it has some pockets in which it will just sweep away all the seats. So that's one reason that the things are fractured. But at the same time, what happens is that these political players, they have realized, for example, this government was a coalition government, and it was so badly structured that everybody said that it's going to last only 6 months. But somehow they have lost 5 years, and nobody knows how they have lost for 5 years. So it is that thing which sends people that somehow they will figure out how to move ahead when the election results come. But it is difficult for them to talk about a coalition now, because at this time it's all about point scoring and getting the votes. Yes.
Thanks, Syed, for the presentation. For me, as somebody who's from a region that have had a lot of conflict in terms of war and civil unrest,
Yeah.
I just want to know what's the mention of the peaceful elections in Pakistan reference the implication for the region, other countries in the region. What if it's the worst case scenario? What do you think is the future of Pakistan in terms of all of the violence and things like that?
Peaceful elections, can you please elaborate? What do you mean by peaceful election?
If the election is not peaceful, meaning if it doesn't work,
You mean that there is increased violence? There's increased violence. Well, I think if the political parties are willing to go ahead, so because there was much more violence in the last election, even the head of the main party was assassinated along with like 100 supporters or things like that. But the next day, her husband would come and say that we will go to the election, doesn't matter. So in that way, they know that extremists, because they are not more than 5,000, 10,000 hardcore people. So they cannot stop a country of 180 million from going to election just by bombing at 5 or 6, 7, 8 places. So they know that the odds are against them. So what they are now trying to do is to get more targeted, like try to stop elections in 1 or 2 cities. For example, they are constantly bombing in Quetta and Karachi. So they want that if the elections could be stopped in 2 provinces, so then they could have their, you can say, number. So I think that's not a critical factor that will stop the election. The more critical factor is what is going on between military, judiciary, and those elites who want to determine how Pakistan moves. Yeah.
So you said in your presentation somewhere that this time military is not having enough popular support for taking over of a popular government.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think military ever had any kind of, at any point of time, the support to throw a popular elected government.
Yeah.
That's probably a notion created by media or by them. And then you again said that its chief is retiring this time. And probably, do you think it is an institutional decision by the military not to interfere in the civilian affair, or is it the personal decision of the present chief of the army?
Yeah, actually, I think you're right in the sense that it was never a popular demand for the military to come. But what military does is that even if the government is unpopular, it's still room for those, you can say, not the military, I won't say military as a whole, there's like a group of generals which somehow thinks that now they can move in. What I think is basically happened this time is the military is busy in war on terror. It's already under pressure to do something against these militants, one. The second thing is that there are different point of views within the military. There are, like the military does not have one viewpoint. For example, when the Nawaz Sharif was overthrown, there was a one point of view in the military, which I means is the general rank and file of the military, because military obeys its boss, but it does what it overall thinks. But at that time, there was like a disenchantment against Nawaz Sharif that he's interfering too much in military. So that was something that was utilized by Musharraf to overthrow Nawaz Sharif. But at this time, there is no such thing, because the rank and file of the military, they also think that there is no point in coming back to power or seizing the government. And the third thing is the media, because either you block the media or the media is grown like a monster, or it will just thrash you, because they still openly, like they not only poke fun, it is something unheard. Nobody can do, like the judiciary has not still tried to praise Musharraf. It is still under that fear of military getting angry. But when you come to media, so they will not openly joke against him, and they will like slur him so much that it is just too much a price that if you are risking and you do not control the media, you're not going to get through. Yeah.
What is the international community's role in supporting maybe some of the candidates or some of the political parties, because it does happen in our part of the world? And what are the people's perceptions towards the Western support, especially the United States, supporting your country, India, or Afghanistan?
In Afghanistan,
I mean, what's the people's perceptions in terms of US supporting Pakistan or Afghanistan? How do they perceive it?
yeah, actually, people, if you ask them, in general, what had happened in Pakistan, let me go back to history, from 47 till 1990, till the fall of Russia, Pakistan was in US camp. In general, there was Pakistan's economy, infrastructure, they are all dependent upon the United States sports and things like that. So in general, people, up till the fall of Soviet Union, they were not against United States. They may not be supportive of their policies, or they might think, and why they were against, mostly because they thought that all the military dictators, they are supported by United States, and that was their only point of resentment against United States, not any of the policies. So at this time, the things are a little different, because there is a widespread discontent among the religious right against what's happening in Afghanistan, what they think is mainly supported by the US and allies. So if you are, you can say, sympathetic towards the US or the international cause, then you are bound to lose the support of the right. But for this government, it was a little bit possible, because it's a leftist government. Now this has been a party which has been against US for 30 years. But certainly the international pitch has transformed so much that it is now acceptable, because it's a leftist party. But it is a leftist party which is basically, its core is anti-US. Like, it's the major, because it's a leftist party, so it does not believe in capitalism, so they cherish the socialism and those ideals. But somehow, at the same time, they are against the extremists. So it's kind of a, you can say, unhappy marriage which is working. So if some rightist party come into power, for example, say Nawaz Sharif, so Nawaz Sharif is sort of a real politic person. So he is considered by many that, all right, he's in opposition, he can say whatever he wants, but when he comes in power, so he is more likely to be more pragmatic, you can say, than towing one line. Another thing is that probably people are saying that after 2014, there will be different realities in Afghanistan or something. Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned sometime that 10% of the present Pakistan People's Party has 10%.
I was a little wrong. Not the People's Party, yes, the president's approval rating.
Okay, but they have 10% popularity, but still they have chances to come back.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It-
And the second thing is whether the Pervez Musharraf will have something influence on anything.
I don't think. I think if he relies on his own sport, he cannot win a single seat in Pakistan. So that's his popularity. Unless he is supported by some party like, say, Muttahida Qawmi Movement, because he is ethnically Urdu speaking, so they might offer him a seat in Karachi. Otherwise, he can't win a seat, because he has no, even the party which was allied to him has now discredited him, so I don't think he will. And coming to the second question, now that is a question about the political map. The problem is that the voter of the Pakistan People's Party, that is a loyal voter. So what is the election? If you are Pakistan People's Party, you cannot get more than 38% of the vote, but you cannot get less than 25% of the vote. So this is like an ideological left base, something like in West Bengal or in India, the Marxist or this type of approach. What the populace see, that I don't like this party, but when my father was dying, he asked me to cast vote for this party. So that's what goes for People's Party, that whatever you do, you can do everything in your life, but your vote is for Bhutto. So that's how that people, especially in Sindh and in rural areas of Punjab, so they would always vote for People's Party, and even the poor segments in urban area. So even if People's Party would have vote in every constituency in Pakistan, it's not like a party, it has vote even in tribal areas, there will be people who will be voting for People's Party. So it's kind of a very federal-oriented party at this stage. Yeah.
My question is more general about your focus on the longer-term democratization of Pakistan. And you seem, optimistic, sort of moderately optimistic based on what I heard. But it's surprising then that you sort of take it as a given that the military will continue being the super important actor, which is not something we think of as normal in democracies. So do you see any prospects for, I don't know, constitutional change or with the change of leadership that is happening in 2014 where that role will diminish?
Yeah, I think what actually happens is that generally, if you examine the series, so military generally takes over after a decade, not before than a decade. But what happens during that decade is that the military controls whoever comes into power. For example, let me give you an example. When in 1988, Benazir Bhutto came into power after Ziaul Haq was killed in a plane crash. So she was holding her first cabinet meeting and somebody spoke from a chair. And she said, can you please introduce yourself? And he said, I'm V.A. Jaffrey, your finance minister. She said, oh, so you are V.A. Jaffrey. So that was a situation that the prime minister did not know who is her finance minister. So, but this time around, it did not started at this from that stage. And the other thing is that at that time, all the opposition parties, they will look towards military or judiciary to get them back into the power. But this time around, it's the other way around. The party in opposition, that is Nawaz Sharif, he is the one who is most vocal against the military. So the military is caught in a, like, you can say the military establishment between deep blue sea and what they say, devil and the deep blue sea. So if they like support the opposition, they get Nawaz Sharif, and if they don't support the opposition, so the People's Party, which has been traditionally against the military. So now there is a broad consensus between the two major political parties, you know. So that's why some people think that probably the rise of Imran Khan is probably an effort by the establishment to throw in somebody who can speak on their behalf. So that is one thing. The other thing is the media, because up till the Pervez Musharraf freed media in 2003, Pakistan had only one channel in which you will only get to hear what the news was. But now we have like about 20 news channels, and they are so popular. And since we do not have a film industry or showbiz industry like other countries, so in our country now the anchors are, the political anchors, they are the celebrities. So they have their own stakes and they have their own, you can say, base. And like from 8 to 9, there are a series of shows and people are switching and watching those shows. And the overall message from the media is that no military intervention.
So there's been, basically you're saying there's already been this change and it's just gonna...
Yeah, so I'm much more hopeful this time that it will work. And then the political maturity, because they are not fighting, they are not destabilizing each other.
You should not only hope, you should do something.
Yeah, I'm doing EMPA for that.
How long do you think would the civilian government will be in a position to overrule the military in the matters which rightly belongs to it?
Actually, the problem is that it's not that simple, that there is no single military and no single civilian supremacy. You derive your authority out of your popular support. It is the same for military, because every military general retires after 3 years. So why it's not a military like Burma in which generals are sitting for 20 years. So the generals are coming and going and everybody is coming and going. So unless there is like something, for example, there were two routes. In the beginning, this government tried to like get their grip on the military by bringing some of their agencies under control, but there was a widespread resentment that they are still not capable of handling these things. So they are now following a more like of, you can say, a gradual approach, that gradually things will come. And I think it's better because you cannot change the perception in a year or so. So if things move on, so people will realize whose job is this and whose job is not this. Right?